Hey guys, welcome to Inbound After Hours. Today we've got a special guest. We've got Olivia coming from HubSpot to talk to us about account-based marketing, and there's myself and Jenny, who recently joined us from HubSpot, actually joining for your first episode on this side of the fence.
On this side of the fence.
You were on one of our first episodes, but you were still at HubSpot at the time when you talked to us about podcasting.
Yeah, I was, so it was really cool. So now I'm the resident leprechaun of Digital 22.
There we
so
go.
yeah, there we go.
Fantastic. So Olivia, do you want to start with the obvious place? What is account-based marketing?
Yeah, absolutely. So account-based marketing is a strategic approach on how you target specific companies. So effectively what you're doing is you're thinking about the types of companies that you want to work with, or the types of accounts, and then you're reaching out to them. So you're figuring out, right, well, what type of content should I send them? And you have a strategic approach on how you connect with them.
Cool. And in your last role at HubSpot, this is something you were actively involved with. So how did HubSpot approach that, considering they're very much advocates of inbound as well?
Exactly, and there's always that side where you're like inbound and outbound, and we'll get to that, I think, for the next one. But on the HubSpot side of things, so for 4 years I was selling direct, and how I would target, my section was on the corporate side, so I was targeting corporate accounts. And what that means is I would look at companies that were sized 200 to 500 within the UK, and also as well specifically London. Okay. The reason that I chose London was because I would travel to London every month, and I wanted to reach out with very specific types. Within that, it's obviously company based, so I was thinking, right, 200 to 500. I also wanted to work with computer software so that they were educated in the area. London, and then would have certain types of turnover as well. Okay. Turnover wasn't as important for me as the type of company, the size, if they both sales and marketing teams.
Yeah, that makes sense. So did you have a strict sort of methodology you followed that you were trained on at HubSpot, or did you have to find your own way with it?
A little bit of both.
Yes, always.
There's a guideline, and then you kind of figure out what works for you. So the kind of the methodology around it, there's typically 6 steps to account-based marketing. First step is identifying the companies or the accounts that you want to work with. The next step is then, right, who within that account, who within that company. And for account-based marketing, you typically need 3 different types of personas. So it would be the marketing, for me it'd be the sales director, and for the business owner. Not so much the CEO, because if a CEO with a company of 500 people, he may not necessarily want to be involved, but I would need at least 3 people on account-based marketing. Okay. So now I've targeted my account, then I've targeted who within that I want to work with, and then what I do is create content around that, decide which channels I want to use in terms of social, email, direct mail, and then run that campaign and look at the data behind it.
Okay. So from a marketer's perspective, it sounds just like sales. Like, what's the difference between account-based marketing and just direct selling? Is it the methodology and the thought and the strategy behind it that makes it different? Exactly,
and I think as well, people get like, account-based marketing, this is something that's new and different. Yeah. They've just put a buzzword on it and said, this sounds way better than I'm going to contact companies directly. You've just got that little bit of a strategy behind it and saying, right, well, these are the types of companies I want to work with. We're a great fit company, we only want to work with these type. Okay. On that, what's your ideal fit company or account that you'd like to want to work with?
So obviously, as most companies do, it evolves. So at this moment in time, I think our sweet spot's between 5 and 15 million. From a revenue perspective, below 5 can sometimes be difficult to hire and afford an agency. Above maybe 15 is a little bit low, but when you start getting higher and higher on revenue sides, it becomes a little bit more bureaucratic. There's a lot of people involved in the sales process, and then there's actually a lot of people involved in the marketing sign-off of materials, which can slow things down. So that sort of revenue fits quite nicely for us. You've got to be obviously primarily English speaking, although we do run other language campaigns.
Does that include?
We're fluent in English and American now. It's been such a change.
Awesome.
National product or international product. What we do doesn't work great on a regional level. Those are the big ones. little bit when you're very content driven, unless there's a massive keyword volume. If you're writing a blog about a subject, it's normally very hard to tag on that a regional aspect to it. So, what is inbound marketing in Northeast England? Like most terms when you're working, particularly at the awareness phase, no one's looking regionally. Yeah. There are exceptions to that where there's big volumes in regions, but on a whole, with particularly B2B side of things, people are just searching for answers to their problems or solutions as an overarching topic. And what we found when we've done these in the past on a regional level, you almost end up with wastage, because if someone only wants to serve a certain part of the country, there's people downloading the stuff from all the part of the country.
Yeah.
You've just got these people where they just go, we don't want them, we'll have this 25%, which can work, but it doesn't quite feel right from a marketer's perspective. And then we're looking for like the obvious sort of inbound fit, so the stuff that HubSpot would teach us, that you need to have a considered life cycle, decent average order value or lifetime value, and good fit for inbound. They have to take HubSpot is obviously one of our criteria as well. But,
ours too.
Yeah, yours too. So we've all got that in common. So I think we probably slightly similar criteria to HubSpot given what we do.
And sales and marketing, is that important now for you, or do you just want marketing, or do they need to have sales and marketing team?
Yeah, so we had a change. It's probably 18 months, 2 years ago, from the working with business owners primarily as a point of contact through to marketing contacts or marketing managers or directors who have the time to spend with us and review stuff and sign things off, because there's actually a lot of work on the client side still. And when we get a lot of business owners, obviously there's always exceptions, but they're normally time poor and it's very hard to keep that going. So predominantly we do ask that they have a marketing person at their end, and more and more the salesperson at their end, because the other situation you get into is you start sending people a lot of leads and there's no one sat there to follow them up or close them. And you know as well as anybody that inbound, in theory, you can set automation in place and they'll contact you when they want to buy something, but it's normally not as idyllic as that. You normally have to contact them a few stages before, and if they've got no salespeople there and or no one comfortable to pick up the phone, it can still make that close rate drop. So we've started to try and add that recently onto our qualification.
Or even the timeline will extend as well.
Yeah, definitely, which is frustrating for both sides of the relationship. Definitely. Yeah. I mean, what's been your exposure to account-based marketing at the moment? Have you heard a lot of people asking about it? And like you said, it's a bit of a buzzword for me at the moment. A lot of people seem to be saying it, but I don't know too many people who are doing it, or they're doing it and they don't know they're doing it, as you alluded to. Is that?
Yeah, it would have been something definitely within HubSpot that it's very much like, again, like the buzzword, it's talked about a lot in HubSpot, definitely. I think it's an almost smarter way if you're going to have to reach out direct, and you don't really want to, like, I suppose the principle of HubSpot being on inbound is that you're a little bit more enlightened than when you go in to look at, say, the sales org and the sales process. You approach that with a bit more of, if you want to call it, an inboundy mind. Yeah. So you change how you do that, and I think account-based marketing just brings you in to be able to be like, okay, well, we can take a more, I'll use the word holistic, it's a very hippie word that we can use, but it is a more holistic way to look at sales. Sales can be very much like, although I understand the bottom line and getting that across the line is important, but you can bring an element of an inboundy sort of ethos into that, which I think account-based marketing basically is. Yeah. And that's what I think like people like Olivia and people who are working at that, they go at that with a different mindset. Yeah. And I think it's very successful because you just come across as being a lot more genuine, it's a lot more personalised, it becomes about more than just the bottom line, it's really about, you know, like, is it a good fit? For example, like that's something that Olivia would have looked at very carefully and been like, is it right? Or is this something that, you know, isn't going to be great for them? It's thinking about the other side of it as well, like making sure that it's best for everybody all around to proceed.
I think you hit the nail on the head there. The personalization aspect is so key. Like, that's the number one thing to take away, and you need the content, so you need both marketing and you need the salesperson to deliver it, but there's no point if it's not personalized. There's no one going to open your email that's not that you've sent it out to absolutely everybody. Like, I've even a funny story, like I used to sell private jets to, like, you know, 1% of the richest people in the world.
Say, it's not a
and like this,
I love mine.
Yeah. Like I used to send the same generic email to everybody, like thinking this would work. Like how naive was I?
Yeah.
Whereas if I had this approach, if I had understood around the personalization, if somebody within that company, if they'd opened up a new office, then I would have realised that, you know, they could be flying from here to here. But sending it out, you know, the same email, expecting a response. How anybody even responded to me is beyond me. But really, if looking back now, if I had these 6 key steps, I would have been a lot more successful within that role and sold a lot more private jets or flights on private jets as well. So, but the personalization item for me is number 1. You also then need to have your tailored content. That's where marketing comes into place. So it's both sales and marketing. So you're aligning the two up effectively.
And you're showing all your research as well. I think from my kind of experience of sales and working in even light sales, nothing kind of based on anything that's worth lots and lots of money previously or anything. But like I think salespeople do an awful lot of research in the background. Even if you're going to cold call, you'll do your research, but you don't often let these companies know, hey, I've had a read online about you, I kind of know a bit about you. And if you're not personalizing it, they don't know that. So why not show all the research you've done and be confident when you're approaching and be like, I did all this research, I know all of this stuff. And without being creepy, I guess.
Over salesy. Never be over salesy, because people just don't like salesy.
I saw you walking your dog yesterday. You look like you could use a dog lead. Like, that's not creepy at all.
And when you start receiving direct phone calls, as a lot of us do from a sales perspective, you always just assume the worst, that they've just got an auto dial going and they just call in and they don't even know who they're coming through to.
The yellow pages, the big yellow pages deck, and they're ringing through. I've done that. I have been given a yellow pages before and told to call people.
That's a marketer's worst nightmare. That would freak me
out.
out.
And a salesperson worst nightmare too.
But I think about the research, that's like, if someone can prove to me in that opening 15 seconds that, no, I'm calling Digital 22 because I know this about you, or I think you'll need this. I'm not just calling everyone to try and sell what I've got. It does warm you up a little bit, definitely.
And it does take time, account-based marketing. It's going to take longer because effectively you are outreaching to them. They're not coming to you. So on that, you have to make sure, like I would always use HubSpot sequences, that I would send at least like 6 to 8 emails. Now, not in one day, but over the course of, say, within 6 weeks. And then I could go in and change or edit it if I saw something coming up. But they were all personalised and tailored to them. So whether it was an event in London that we had, you know, that might be email 3, but it's really about making sure that, one, it's relevant for them, you're not too salesy, it's personalised, the content's right, you've done your homework. So I found the HubSpot sequences just perfect for it.
I think if you tick all those boxes, I guess it's like any marketing tool really, it can be used for good and evil. With sequence, it's probably not sequences, but similar tools that do this. There's nothing more annoying than someone who's really not targeted to you sending you them, because it's one of my pet peeves at the moment. It seems to have got really popular with, and you always get that one like 8 in where they try and be funny, like, you fell down a hole and I'll help you.
Should I call for help? Okay.
And the first time you get it, you laugh. But it's when you can tell they haven't done the research, it's not personalised and all that stuff. It's really bad. But I guess like any sales, if you just rang people without that, it's really bad. So it's just. It's a way of using the good tools that are out there, but in a smart way, isn't it? And I think the point that you made earlier about the mindset doing this in inboundy way is quite good, because obviously that ties back to things like personas and all that. But I remember when HubSpot started moving into the sort of ads space, and prior to that, HubSpot were a bit, don't do ads, they're evil sort of thing. And we were doing ads at the time from a PPC and social ads viewpoint. Then when they started rolling this out, they did it the same way. It's like, okay, these can be good, but do it in an inboundy way. If you're targeting people with ads who aren't cold, they've come to your site to like remarketing, or they've downloaded an ebook and you want to show them the next consideration piece or whatever. There's always, with any aspects of that, if you've got the inboundy mindset, you can make it work, and you can make it not feel cheesy or terrible or whatever the old school methods
You keep the prospect then. I always like the nice way to kind of think about it is if you're doing that in an inboundy way, you're keeping the prospect and you're keeping the customer at the core and the heart and the center of what you're trying to do. And yes, you want the sale and you want the business, and that's fine. But I think it's, again, just a bit more of a human way of doing things, because generally outbound is considered very like cold calling. It's in the name, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a mindset you just have to get into,
And thinking about the company, so it's always the company first.
Yeah.
So who are those types of accounts that we want to work with?
Yeah.
And then within that, you have to do your research.
Yeah.
Who are the types of people? And then whether it's industry, whether it's location, you start to understand, right, well, what best fits us.
Yeah.
So it's always thinking like, who are the types of companies you want to work with? Because that's what's key, because they're going to you're going to be able to help them and support them.
No, it makes sense. It's amazing how HubSpot have over the years built this culture that we all sit here saying inboundy things, even though it's not inbound anymore. And they're the masters of taking a concept and branding it and building a movement behind things, aren't you? Like
writing the book on it.
Yeah. But like the inbound methodology, there's probably people sat and said, I've been doing inbound before, it was called inbound and blah blah blah. And then I know the stuff that Matt Barbie's doing on the sort of pillar pages and stuff, everyone's like, we've been doing that but we just didn't call it that. But when you start having, somehow HubSpot's just got this ability to name stuff and build a movement. I think maybe it's just simplicity in messaging sometimes, but it seems like you end up talking a lot about things to do with HubSpot without it being there. Stuff like when we're sat saying inboundy sales and inboundy ads and stuff.
I think inbound, like the event itself in Boston every year as well, like, you know, kind of quote unquote Disneyland, I guess, for marketers, if you want to call it that, but it really is like, it's like a theme park. It's like everything you ever wanted to know. It's like, and then there's all these people. It really is. So I think building, it's definitely, like you mentioned, it's definitely like it's a movement.
But that's a perfect example, because they could have just called that the HubSpot show or something, couldn't they? Still people turn up for all the speakers and to hear it, but because they do it the inboundy way, they put HubSpot in the background and they make it about inbound, and it's got that presence because of that, hasn't it? I don't think it would have got if it was just come and see HubSpot for 5 days and we'll try and sell you HubSpot while you're here, and if anyone dare have a talk and mention Marketo, like get off stage, but they do, and no one.
Evils.
You see the shepherds. It's like,
get off stage. But no one does that, and I think that's refreshing as well. I think when companies aren't afraid of that, then there's something to be said for
or
it.
even on the account-based marketing side, Marketo's old CEO, he launched a new tool called Engagio. That's really good for account-based marketing as well, and you can utilize all of those. There's more than just one tool that you can use for account-based marketing. I don't publicize that, just use HubSpot sequences. There's other stuff out there. If you're running the ad roll, you can filter in on ads as well. Like if you've got your targeted list, then we want to reposition and remarket to them. That's helpful. Or going back to the old-fashioned approach and sending out someone a piece of mail or a direct mail that's unique to them.
Definitely.
You know, there's no harm in reverting back on the account-based marketing side for those.
You were showing me some tools earlier that you'd use regularly for account-based marketing. Do you want to have a chat to the guys about what would be your go-to sort of stack for account-based marketing? There's another word.
There's a stack growth. There's a good few tools that I'd utilise. So first and foremost, I'd create my list in LinkedIn. So I'd tailor that, right? So I want to create companies that are 200 to 500, revenue targets, geographical location would be London. Then I'd also look at industry. You know, for the first year or first 6 months, it could be computer software. Education might be the following year. So it really depends on it. And as you had mentioned, like Rikki, it might change over time. Everything changes. Whereas when I'd started, it was just marketing. Now it's marketing and sales. It's a combination of both and sales enablement. So I'd always use LinkedIn for the starting point. Or Datanize was also great at customizing for lists. I'd also then use Slack, have a new great little tool where you can type in like who's using Marketo, or different types of questions like who are they using this type of software, which meant that they're sophisticated. So that's someone who I want to talk with. So I'd use LinkedIn, I'd use Slack, and then once I'd find the right types of companies that I wanted to target, I'd then create my HubSpot sequence. So then I'd start to think about, right, I know who I want to target, I know the right types of people, and then I'd ask marketing, like I'd say, what do you have? Like this is the campaign I'm running. What types of resources are there available? And as you know, there's so much with HubSpot. Like it's nearly endless. You're like, this is what I need. Give me 3 things. and I'd tailor it to those companies and those individuals.
Awesome.
So marketing personalization is key, obviously. So I've got my LinkedIn, I've got my Slack, I've got Datanize, I've got HubSpot sequences, direct mail if there was an event coming up that I'd post it to them that's making it just a little bit unique but reference back on my emails and around that. So I'd also send that. Other tools like Engagio, that's a good one that I haven't used too much in depth, but I've heard great reports on it. And I think that's it.
The growth bot was cool when we were just
Oh
looking
yeah, the
at
growth
it
bot
within Slack.
that's so
I know it's
nice.
another HubSpot thing, when I was playing with it, because you can do it in Facebook Messenger as well as Slack, so I have it on my Facebook Messenger, and I think I typed in people who have received large rounds of funding in Manchester, and just came up with 10 companies who have got like $1 million plus.
So you were doing account-based marketing and you're doing
I think HubSpot, it looks like on the Sales Pro tools and stuff, they're trying to tailor towards account-based marketing a lot.
Yeah.
And then did they invest in, was it a company called Terminus?
That's it's more US centric.
Okay, is that account-based marketing?
Yeah, it's account-based marketing as well.
But in the US market, it'd be interesting to see if they start taking any tools or bringing those two tools together as well.
Yeah, it'd be interesting from that side to see how it'll adapt or what'll be the next phase in terms of that.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I think the guys have probably got a really good top-level overview on account-based marketing. For anyone who's watching on the live stream, tomorrow Olivia's going to be doing a talk at our Manchester Hug where you'll be doing a full presentation on account-based marketing. So if there's anything we missed out today, we'll cover it tomorrow. So if you want to tune in, it'll probably be about 11 o'clock-ish tomorrow that Olivia will be on the live stream. We'll see you then. But
perfect.
Fantastic.
And sign up if you are available. It's in Manchester.
If you're in Manchester and you're available, come down tomorrow.
HubSpot user group.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you guys.
Thanks guys.